Hi there folks, in today's demonstration I'm going to show you an Office script demo, and if you're a fan of macros in Excel or maybe automation and haven't yet learnt about Power Automate, then maybe this is something you need to be hanging about and watching because it could ultimately save you a lot of time. So this particular script I've written is based on a code language called JavaScript or TypeScript, which ultimately is Office scripts, and we can see on screen that I have a function, and that function has a series of input parameters. Now the advantage of an Office script is that you can run them directly from within Excel, and if I hit this play button we'll get a nice little pop-up window. I can populate that with some sample data, in which case I'm passing an array, and at this point maybe that looks a bit confusing, but don't worry, I'll explain it later on in the video. But further down I have all my other input parameters, the sheet name. That doesn't have to match an existing sheet. If it doesn't exist, it will create a brand new one. We can either append or we can clear the data on that sheet. We can format that data as a table. We can specify the specific table name if we want to have a dynamic table name, and if the data includes a header, we can include that or exclude it when it's formatted as a table. But if I run this manually from within Office scripts, you can see that the data has now been saved to the Excel file and the columns have been automatically formatted to fit the width of those columns. If I run this once more and again paste that array, but this time change it to format as table to true and maybe call the table 123, when I hit run we can see that a brand new table is created. The formatting is auto-applied, and if I select that table and go to the table design, we have a table called table 123. So this is Office scripts from within Excel. You'll have to look out the Automate tab, and I have got various videos on Office scripts. But the amazing thing about this is, whilst you can call it from Excel itself, you can actually call these scripts from Power Automate. And so today I'm going to show you how we can append and obviously clear data on existing sheets, but potentially write to different sheets based on the month of the year, for instance, because these values we can pass dynamically to the script. So let's go and jump over onto Power Automate. So over on the left hand side I have a very simple flow. Over on the right hand side I've got my empty Excel workbook. And so I'm going to start off with things very simple. I'm going to show you how we can call this Office script from the Cloud Flow using a manual trigger, and then I'm going to develop it further so that it will trigger from when a file is received as an attachment via email, and also when a file is uploaded to SharePoint. So the flow on the left, we have a manual trigger, we press a button, the flow runs, and then I have a compose action, which is a read-only variable. If you're unfamiliar with a compose, make sure you check out my video on variables. But here we have a nested array which has the column headers. Next up I have a select. It's my favorite action, and I think most people will know that, but it ultimately allows me to create an array of data. I'm using range to generate some sample data and then creating a nested array. You'll see the square brackets at the top and at the bottom, using the text mode here so that I then supply the current item, which is the range number from 0 through to 9. I have an add days to create a date based on an incremental day on today's date, and then I'm using GUID to generate a random GUID. But this is my sample data that I want to import into Excel. Finally, I've got my run script. I've attached it to a SharePoint document library. We have the file called all orders, which is the file I have open on the right hand side here. I'm passing across into that script the worksheet data. Remember, I ran the script from Excel. That is the array, which includes both the header and the output of the select that you've just seen. I'm going to add it into a sheet called September, which is currently a fixed sheet name, but we'll make that dynamic shortly. I'm going to clear out the existing sheet. I'm not going to format it as a table. There is a table parameter, which will get ignored, and we have included the header as part of the data. So if I now test this flow, you'll be able to see how quickly the flow completes in a matter of seconds. And then over on the right hand side, without me having to refresh, the data has already appeared in a September sheet. And there is my random data, the ID, the date, and the GUIDs. Now this is just sample data. Of course, I want to bring in data from an incoming Excel sheet. But before I do that, let's see what else this script can do. So if I jump back across onto this flow, if I go into the run script, rather than it being a fixed sheet name, why don't we delete this and make it dynamic using the expressions. So I'm going to use an expression called UTC now, and inside that you can apply some formatting, and by me specifying 4 M's it'll actually get me the full name of the current month. So it's currently October, and obviously as this runs throughout the year it will dynamically change across all those different months, and if the tab doesn't exist it'll add that sheet in. If it does exist it will, in this case, clear, but actually I would like to append. So I'm going to change the parameter to append. I'm going to say to format as a table, and I'm going to call the table actually the same as the name that I specified for the sheet. So I'll select that, and rather than having table 1, I'll go into the FX and paste that expression in and add it. Does the data include a header? Well, previously I'd said yes, but I'm going to say no, and then rather than creating a union of the header and the select, I'm going to remove that entirely and instead just use the output of the select. And so now all I'm going to do is pass across the data based on what I've created in this select action. So with the two side by side again, if I run test, the flow will once more complete very quickly, and we can see already the October tab has arrived and we have a table with the new data. If I run this a second time, because the script is set up to append, what we'll see is we'll get an extra 10 rows added onto the end of this sheet. If I go into edit and then change the settings of the run script, rather than append, if I change it back to clear, and I'll turn off the format as table, so we'll set that to no. If I test this, we can see how very quickly that sheet is cleared and the data is applied, but there's absolutely no formatting. This data is not in a table. So we've got quite a flexible script. It will take an array of data, it will pass that into the sheet of our choice dynamically. We can then choose, do we want to format it as a table, we can append to the existing data, or we can clear out that sheet and just add the new data that we've supplied to the script. Now I've tested this on large volumes. I've previously done a video showing you how you can export data from Power BI, 20,000 rows in about 10 to 15 seconds. So this logic applies the same here. If I was to go back into my edit, if I was to change my select, so rather than the range being from 0 to 10, if I make it 10,000 and update that, again, if we test it, we'll be able to see that the script completes within about 10 seconds, in fact 5 seconds. If I look at the output, we can see there's a nice log there. The script completed in 0.93 seconds. The overall process completed in 5 according to Power Automate, and we can see that 10,000 rows were written. And then over on the right hand side we can see that if I scroll all the way down to the very bottom, we have 10,000 rows that have been written to this sheet. So not only does it come with a lot of different options, it's also extremely efficient at writing data into Excel. So how can we make this flow trigger when an email comes in with an attachment, or maybe when a file is uploaded to SharePoint? So over in Outlook, I have an email primed with a subject, Excel file to process. I'm going to copy that subject because I'm going to use that as part of a filter. I have an orders doc attached, and if I open that up, we can see that I have a series of rows relating to order data. So I've got 20 rows there related to order data, and I'd like to accumulate that order data because it comes to me daily via email. Over on the flow that I've just demonstrated to you, I'm going to delete the existing trigger that I have, and I'm going to add in the trigger for when an email arrives. And so this particular action is going to watch my mailbox for any emails that comes in and then trigger. But I would like to filter, and that's why I copied the subject. So one of the options here is a subject filter. I'll add that in and I'll paste in that string for the subject line, Excel file to process. So now we won't accidentally trigger this flow on the wrong emails. Once the email has arrived, I'll need to get the attachment. So I'm going to add in an action to get attachments. And you'll see the action here, and then we need to go and populate some of the content dynamically. So I'll go into the lightning bolt, I can choose ID by searching for ID, we can get the message ID here, and then when I go and insert the attachment ID, you'll note that it will jump into a loop. So I'll search for ID, I choose the attachment ID. Of course there could be multiple attachments, which is why we now are in a for each loop. And then once we've got that attachment, we can save it to a document library. So I'm going to go and add an action, create a file, choose the SharePoint create file, and then I'll hunt down my October 24 SharePoint site onto my shared documents. And then the file name I can base on the dynamic value of the attachment, so name of attachment, and then the file content equally can be based on the content bytes. So that enables me to save all the attachments that come in via email. I could add in a condition, or I could filter the attachments array for the XLSX extension, but I'm confident with this particular process that I will only receive attachments based on Excel files. So with that file now created, I need to go and list the rows in the table. So we'll go and add in list rows, choose list rows in a table, choose the location, which is based on my October 24, choose a document library, which is based on documents, and then in terms of the file, I can choose that dynamically based on the file path. When it comes to the table, because this is using a dynamic value for the file path, it's not able to find the table by name, but I know that the default table name in this incoming file is table1, and I can enter that as a custom value. So this is a pre-requirement. You'll need to make sure that you have a table in the incoming file. If you don't, it is possible to add a table into the file automatically, either using Office scripts or again by using the action create table. So with this in place, it's going to list the rows present in the table. If you've never used this action before, it's worth knowing that this will only bring back 256 rows maximum. Now the particular file I have only has 20 rows in the table. If you have more rows, you'll want to go into the settings and turn on pagination. Now with pagination turned on, you'll see that it's asking for a number. It must be greater than 0. If you insert a value up to 100,000, that's the maximum number of rows that you can bring through. So if I type in 100,000 for instance and click out, everything is happy. If I put in 100,001, you'll see that I can't exceed 100,000 rows. But I'm going to remove this and turn pagination off because I only have 20 rows in my sample data. So with all those rows now brought into my flow, I want to be able to select that data. So I'm going to add in a select action like so, and then the from is going to be based on the value, so the body value from the list rows. The map, rather than using key values, I'm going to switch to T, and I'm able to put in a square bracket at the beginning, a square bracket at the end, and then I can go and insert the dynamic values for each of the columns. So I'll use the lightning bolt, and much to my shock and horror, there aren't any dynamic values for the columns within the table. We can simply write expressions, and our column names are based on the existing incoming Excel file. So if I jump across onto that Excel file that's going to come in via email, we can see we have order ID. We would write an expression based on this column name. Equally, order date is order space date. Customer name is customer space name. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to bring through the order ID, the order date, and the customer name, as well as the status. So just 4 of the columns based on the incoming data. So back over onto Power Automate, if I go and click on the FX, in order to write an expression, we base it on item, question mark, open brackets, and single quotes, and order ID. If I copy that expression, Control C, hit add, I can then add in a comma, return down, back into FX, paste it back in, and rather than order ID this time, I'm going to use order date. Again, add in a comma, add in a return, into the FX, paste in the expression, and type in customer name, and hit add. Add in a comma, hit a return, into FX, Control V, and then finally I want status. I'll add that in, tidy up my array by removing the return line, and now we have a select in the format of the data that we're looking to write to our Excel file. Now if I wanted a specific header for these 4 columns, if I jump across onto the compose header, I would simply add in the header values into an array like so. But I'm not going to do that for this particular run. Instead I'm going to delete this compose header. I'm going to delete the original select that I had with the sample data, and I'm going to move the run script up into the apply to each. And within that run script, you can see it's attached to all orders. It's going to save to the worksheet based on the body of the original select, so I need to clear that out and attach it to the new output of select 1 above. The sheet name is based on the month. I'm going to clear out that original sheet. I will format this as a table. The table name will be based on the month, and the data does not include a header. So if I put this into test, I can jump back across onto Outlook and hit the send button. And then jumping back across onto Power Automate, the flow is triggered. It's got the attachment, created a file, listed the rows present in the table. We use the select to turn the data from this input structure, like so, into this output structure, like so, and then we pass it into the run script. And we can see in the run script, we have our October table created. The script is run in 0.74 seconds, and we have 20 rows of data written. If I jump across onto my SharePoint site and I open up my all orders into the October tab, we have those 20 rows written to our Excel sheet. And of course the original data was cleared out because I'd set up the script to clear. So jumping across onto my SharePoint site, I have a folder called New Uploads, and I would like to be able to trigger the flow such that when a file is dragged and dropped into this folder, it triggers and it copies the data and it uploads it into that master spreadsheet. So it just so happens that I have another sheet and it has about 80 rows by the looks of it. And I'll drag and drop this into our SharePoint site once I've updated our Power Automate flow. So back over on that original flow, I'm going to delete the when an email arrives trigger. I'm going to add in a trigger for when a file is created, and we can choose this one here. I'll attach it to my SharePoint site again and to my document library. Now because I want it to monitor a specific folder, if I go to show all, I can see we can limit to a folder here, and I can choose the folder in question, which is based on my shared documents. I want it to watch the new uploads folder. Now when that triggers, I want to get the file content, so we'll search for get file content. I'll choose this one here. This is going to ask for a site address again, so we'll go with my October 24. Dynamically, we can provide the file identifier, and if I search for identifier, we can see that there is a property from the when a file is created. That'll get me the file, and then I want to be able to list the rows present in a table. So I'll go ahead and add in the list rows present in a table. We can set that up exactly the same way as we did before, choosing October 2024, choosing the same document library. The file is based on the path, and I'll choose the full path. The table, again, was based on that table 1 as a custom value. I want to use select again, so to keep things simple, I'm actually just going to copy that action and then I will paste it in underneath here. The from is based on my new list rows present in the table, so I'll go and delete the original and I'll update that with the body value from my new list rows in the table. The expressions are all the same, they're still valid, and then the original run script is that I'll copy that also. I can paste that in to save some time. I'll delete the apply to each because it's no longer required for this particular process. And then the run script is looking for the data from the select action, in this case the wrong select action. So again, I'll delete that and update that with our new select action. Rather than clearing, I'll append the data. Rather than formatting as a table, I won't format as a table. And now if I put this into test mode, I can jump across into my SharePoint site. I can drag and drop that orders to document, and if I bring that flow up alongside our Excel orders, we'll see that the flow has now triggered. And if we watch over on the right hand side, with that flow now complete, the additional data is added into our Excel sheet and appended to the end of the existing data that we already had there. So that's it. I've demonstrated how you can use Office scripts to append or clear data on an existing sheet, dynamically choose that sheet, dynamically create a table, and I will make this script available to purchase alongside the existing script that I've done on loading data to Excel in bulk. So rather than just getting the one script, you'll actually get the two, both the original script and also this new ultimate script that I've just created. If you're looking for a customized script, then do please get in contact. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime soon.